We're going to go ahead and call our meeting to order, the Murray County School Board November monthly meeting, November 3rd. Ms. Kinzer, if you'd call the roll. Sorry to put you on the spot.
I know it, I completely forgot. Ms. Parker? Here. Ms. Kinzer's here. Ms. Hopkins? Here. Mr. Fulbright?
Here.
Mr. Moore?
Present.
Mr. Sims?
Here.
Mr. Hooper?
Here.
Mr. Howell?
Here.
And Mr. Lindsay?
Okay, we have 9 folks with us this evening, making sure my math is right. So we do have an official meeting. We're about to start. If you would, please rise for the pledge and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. And let the record show, Ms. Irvin is here to join us and bring our total to 10. First item on our agenda is to adopt the agenda. Is there a motion? Motion by Mr. Moore. Is there a second to adopt the agenda? Second by Ms. Parker. Any discussion on the agenda? If not, we'll vote. Yeah, that'd be a good idea. And this will be a vote to adopt the agenda. So if you're voting yes, you will be voting to approve the agenda. If you vote no, it will be to not approve the agenda as presented. I learned in my school chair conference that you're always supposed to clarify that. Mr. Moore made the motion, Ms. Parker made the second. All right, the vote is unanimous. We have an approved agenda. Director Hickman, are there any recognitions, announcements for you or your staff?
Just wanted to kind of fill you in for today. Today, the students were not at school due to Election Day, but we did hold PD today, and it was a great day of PD. A lot of professional development going on. One was birthed out of the adoption we just did for ALA. I know it was better late than never, but we had the folks that we adopted it from come in and train all the grade levels for that. So it was a great day of PD, and we really did appreciate having this day to do that.
Thank you for sharing that. Murray County Education Association. Either way is fine.
Better down here. Okay, is it on? Yes. Chair Fulbright, Director Hickman, and board members, thank you again for allowing MCA to have a voice during the monthly board meetings. First, I would like to express MCA's thoughts and wishes to the families and school families who have lost students in the past month. If you follow social media at all, you have seen teachers expressing frustration, fear, exhaustion, depression, and feelings of being overwhelmed this year. Murray County is no exception. Just when employees think they can breathe, cases go up, contact tracing occurs, and you have to reset. Not all students are able to remote in, and in all honesty, many students don't live in homes conducive to remote learning. Several churches in our area continue to support our students by opening their doors, so students who are sent home to quarantine are able to have a place to work with Wi-Fi and perhaps a more conducive learning environment. Employees are now required to wear a mask if unable to socially distance. As many of us have heard over and over and over again from the onset of this, my mask protects you from me. The question, I think, is on everybody's mind is who's protecting the employees from the other people who are not wearing a mask. Students and family staff and family members are increasingly coming back with positive tests. We are seeing employee absenteeism on the rise, and teachers are being sent home not just for 10-day protocol or 14-day protocol, but now we see teachers going home and employees going home for 24-day protocols due to exposure in the home. Interestingly, I have research, and unfortunately I ran out of colored ink, and it didn't matter whether I printed on black and white because it'd be hard to read, but I will be sure to share this with you. From the Tennessee Department of Health, showing that counties that mandated masks not only saw a reduction in the cases per 100,000, but also an increase in the time it took to double COVID positive cases. And I know this is a very personal issue to everybody, but I just feel like it's important to share that information. Early on, we were deemed essential employees, but some of these protocols don't apply to essential status. Common sense says that if you're positive, you must stay home. However, if you are exposed at home and negative, you have to stay home for 24 days. A major concern at the beginning of the year was people needing to take multiple COVID-19 leaves, which has happened and continues to happen. This brings another major concern to front that I've addressed at almost every board meeting I have had the honor of speaking at. Teachers are going into 10, 20, 14, and 24-day quarantines without knowing how many days of sick leave we have. We still, 3 years later, have no idea the accuracy of our sick leave. I know I'm beating a dead horse on this issue. The horse has been dead for a few years, but when will we find out these accurate balances? And I did address this with the leadership team. How many years will this be an audit finding? What happens when a teacher uses up so many days by the end of the year because she assumes she has these days, he or she, or an employee has these days, and at the end of the year, because they've had over 2 or 3 issues with COVID, they now owe the district money because they've taken so many days of leave. Will this again this year be an audit finding? While the board discusses administrator salary schedule and looking at the MOU for kids on stage, I hope we start putting forward thoughts regarding support staff and teacher salary schedules. I have heard school leadership express concerns of what will happen in December or in the future as far as retirement and resignations go. In the first 2.5 months of school, we have had more than 50 resignations of employees, not just teachers. We currently have 26 licensed positions open. Those 26 positions, whether interim or full-time, represent a teacherless classroom. This is especially concerning when you also have 56, now I saw today 61 teachers out due to COVID-19 protocols, not to mention normal teacher absences. This leaves at least 82 empty classrooms just due to those 2 issues alone. That doesn't include personal days, normal sick days, and other absences that happen regularly. So who has to fill those spots? Teachers or paraprofessionals. Teachers are ending up without planning time, in some schools several days a week. For this, they get $10 an hour, plus having to do that work outside of school, which is more than most teachers, I'm sorry, I lost my place, to develop meaningful plans for not just in-person students, but also for their remote students. So now they're planning for 2 different groups of people outside of their work hours because they have to cover classes during, and I know there's no subs, we just are limited on that. So here's how we're rounding out the first semester. We have schools struggling with the loss of student lives. Schools are closing. Employees are working to exhaustion. And I really have to say that I think the rise in absenteeism is not just due to COVID issues. It's due to teachers just being exhausted from doing 2 jobs. They're having a hard time finding work-life balance. Their own children and families may be struggling. They have no idea how many sick days they have unless they just started this year and started with 10 days. I am concerned about employees and their families' mental health. So I leave here tonight wishing our employees stay healthy both physically and mentally. I leave hoping some of these issues will be resolved sooner rather than later. Thank you. And if anybody wants this, I can email it to you, the graphs.
Thank you very much. Are there any public delegations signed up? Okay, seeing none. Staff reporting, any staff reporting notes? Okay, thank you. Number 7, we come to our consent items, and if you browse through your agenda, there are 42 consent items. Mr. Moore has made the motion to made the motion to approve. Second by Ms. Hopkins. Was it Ms. Hopkins or Ms. Kinzer? Ms. Kinzer. I was gonna say, I try to look for the mouths that are moving, but it's kinda hard these days. Seconded by Ms. Kinzer. Any other discussion on the consent items? Seeing no discussion, we will take a vote. This is a vote to approve consent items. Looks like we have unanimous approval of our consent items. Number 8, new business. We'll turn it over to the finance department at this time.
The only item that's under finance is the budget amendment that the board asked to be pulled out of consent last, work session. It is to cover the COVID supplies that are recurring expenses in, Eric Perriman and, the maintenance budget because, they've just gotta keep the buildings clean, and so they had requested, cause if we don't give him those funds, his line item is gonna be over budget at the end of the year because these were unexpected expenses that were put into this year's budget for him. And, Eric, if you wanna say something as well.
And these are the items that when we started the year, we wanted to make sure every teacher, every employee had. If you remember late, really in August, about the time we started school, after we had purchased the bulk of this, the state came back and said, we're gonna send packets to teachers. And what they did, when they did that, was said, okay, any cost you've incurred beyond the very first purchase, we will not supplement for you. Now, they do not send everything. They do not send a disinfectant or a cleaner. They do send, we have masks on hand that were part of that. Teachers get, just a limited number of supplies, but what we purchased really were the disinfectants, the cleaning supplies, the items that went along with that, the paper towels, those types of things. We had to find somewhere to purchase those. We purchased those out of the maintenance budget, so we've hit it for about this number here, a little over $50,000. And those are funds that, when we set the budget last year, were not dedicated to any cleaning supplies. So we have what we've used from the start of school to now. We have, depending on the item, we have a limited number of some items, which is okay because the teacher kits will offset some of that. But the cleaner, we're probably gonna have to purchase again because as we go in, like, we're going into Hampshire tomorrow following ABM and actually fogging the building. Those items are items that we're doing ourselves through our maintenance department. Rather than paying our contractors to do it, we can do it cheaper ourselves, but then it comes out of here. So that's all it is asking for a refund on the items that we bought to treat the buildings past the initial purchase.
Could somebody remind me just really quick why we pulled this off and didn't send it straight to?
It was on the work session.
Yeah, I remember us pulling one off, but I don't remember why.
The only reason I think I remember is that's the one that I stated was coming from fund balance. None of the other items were hitting fund balance.
That very well could be the answer. Mr. Moore has made the motion to approve. Is there a second? Ms. Parker has the second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote to approve this budget amendment, or not. Looks like we have unanimous passage of the budget amendment. Next item under new business instructions, Mr. Gaines.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. You asked us to gather additional information on the work session proposal to change the calendar by reducing it one student day to make the last day May 24 rather than May discretionary day. We had a discretionary day added to the calendar in response from the State Department. They review our calendar, and because at that time we had 176 instructional days, they told us we needed a discretionary day to be able to keep those instructional days at 175. So the original calendar had 176 instructional days and 5 professional development days, which totals 181 instructional days. We adjusted the calendar, you remember, on 7/20 to move all the professional development and in-service to the front. In that time, we did reduce the instructional days to 175, but we didn't address that discretionary day. As we were preparing to look at calendars for 21-22 and 22-23, as we started looking at those days again, we discovered that we do have, we need to reduce the calendar by one day in order to, all teacher contracts are 200 days. So we do need to reduce the calendar. So we surveyed staff and put a survey out for parents based on the options you gave us. You asked us to consider Good Friday, President's Day, and a Saturday. And so we surveyed staff. And I can go over those results for you if you can let me jump in. So these are results from staff. As you see, staff, for the most part, voted to 60% of parents there wanted to substitute the day for an earlier day in the calendar. And of those who chose to substitute, 87% of them chose to choose President's Day. Staff and parents, and knowing that the original calendar already had May 24th and May 25th as scheduled school days, we recommend leaving the calendar to dismiss on May 24th as an early dismissal day.
Were the surveys sent to all parents within Murray County?
Yes, we put it out on, because we were trying to be strategic because we had switched to remote and we were trying to make sure that, so we launched it on the same platforms as we did. We didn't do a phone call because, we sometimes didn't want to inundate parents or come, we'd just done the remote call. So we did put it out right after we launched remote, so we thought a lot of parents would see it and we would capture as much as we can.
Okay.
The parents, does that mean via Facebook or via, how was that done?
Facebook, Twitter, we launched it to schools also and asked them to put it out.
Okay.
So I don't recall getting one.
We
I
didn't
don't
do
either.
a call. We didn't do a call out.
Yeah, I
of
didn't
it.
know anything about it.
Yeah.
Mr. Moore?
Sorry,
Ms.
I
Urban?
just didn't want to speak out of
Sorry,
turn.
I was doing some math here.
How difficult is it to do the phone surveys like we did at the beginning of the year? 'Cause like Ms. Parker, I was not aware of this survey, and I'm,
Well, the trigger is we can do the school messenger survey. We just, we didn't wanna do another phone call during that time. We'd just done the remote call,
I
but
understand.
certainly when we survey for the next 2-year calendar, we will phone parents and say, there's a survey available, and we will launch it via email also.
I think that would be helpful, 'cause I think there's a lot of parents who don't necessarily access social media, in my opinion.
Yeah, but I do appreciate the steps that y'all have taken to garner this information. I think that lets me feel, even though this isn't my first choice, I still feel better about it, knowing that we've had input from the staff as well as the parents. Any other discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Mr. Moore,
Oh.
I do just wanna say, I think it's important to note that the parents actually were in favor of President's Day, whereas the staff was in favor of basically a half day. And if we're talking about 200 instructional days, I think we would probably get more value out of the President's Day than we would out of doing an early dismissal day, which is not how we have normally done things. And really in the last 5 years, I think that we've had a calendar. We don't do an early dismissal on the last day of school. And I really think that considering what all we have, the lack of instruction that children have gotten over the last several months, this would not be my first choice, I'll just say that.
Okay, Mr. Hickman?
We discussed that at central office, and what we surmised from doing that is, that's gonna be kinda in the heart of the flu season and other things going on, as well as the COVID, and like listening to Ms. Inc. speak on behalf of the teachers, we were worried about just having a day in the calendar for teachers to look forward to just have that day. And I know that's probably not what you wanna hear, but we were trying to look at what the teachers were thinking too when we made that decision.
I appreciate that, but I do think, one, our goal is to instruct students, first and foremost. If you wanted to make that a remote day countywide, I would probably be in favor of that and have some planning for that. I understand your concern about flu, but to be honest, I haven't seen anything come from central office that shows me that we're really thinking about what we're gonna be doing for the next several months for sicknesses. And so, you know, that's proactive to think about, but I'm worried about Thanksgiving to Christmas too, because I don't know how we're gonna get instruction in at that time. And to commit ourselves to basically checking a box, like I said earlier, and just having students come in and pick up a report card is just, I really feel like that's really not a good use of parents' time, students' time, teachers' time, anybody's time, honestly.
Could you flip back to the results, survey results? Are you able to do that easily?
You take just a second. Okay, this is parents.
All right, hold it just 1 second. Okay. Flip it to the teachers now, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's staff, I'm sorry. Well, it says 1,006 responses, that's fine. Yeah, I'm on the wrong one. Okay, now we're staff,
Oh.
okay, yeah, sorry. Looking at the tabs wrong.
It's pretty close. All right, so if I'm doing my math right, leaving that Monday as something, either a half day or a full day, we're looking at 50% of staff, 37% of parents wanted that to be left as something. Nobody really liked the idea of Saturdays, but the rest of everybody could go with the idea of
President's Day.
Well, yeah, never mind, I've got myself confused.
Okay.
Somebody did the math on that for me. Okay. All right. Mr. Moore.
Yeah, if I could just echo Ms. Parker saying, this has been a frustrating point of mine. I know through our last few years going through this, it just feels more like a logistical decision than it just doesn't put the education of our kids first. And I'm probably gonna approve it just 'cause it's not worth, like, just making a big mess over it. But I would hope as we continue to do this, that we get away from these kind of things that are just checking the box to get a day in because we're supposed to. I mean, if we're gonna have kids come to school, I want education to take place. I mean, that's what everybody's expecting. And I've never liked, consistently, I think Ms. Parker's the same way since we got on this board, I've never liked coming to school just to do something to show up and make sure we meet the required days. If they're there, let's have education take place and make sure we're getting, and, 'cause frankly, right now, this year, we're shortchanged anyway. And I think everybody knows it. So, just having them show up doesn't help me feel any better about the process.
Ms. Irvin.
My screen is frozen. I can't get the calendar to pull up. I don't know if that's easily accessible or not, but from memory, Good Friday is usually pretty typically very close to the spring break. Actually, this time it's like a rollover.
It's
I
the
see
first
that.
day of spring break.
It's the first day of spring break. Okay, there's been some times in the past, like, where it's just an addition. I think I'm probably consider myself a very religious person, but I know very few. I know the school system I was in prior, we did not celebrate that day. That would be a day that, I think could easily, I don't know, maybe be used for that day without a whole lot of people noticing. That's just a thought, but.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other discussion? Mule Day will take place the following weekend, the 9th, since the first weekend is Easter weekend. If it takes place. All right, seeing no other discussion, we are prepared to vote on this calendar as presented, leaving the 24th as a half-day. Am I correct in the way I'm phrasing that? And that would be the last day of school, that half a day. And refresh my memory again, what would be taking place, just picking up the report cards?
It will be a day of attendance. Students will, but most students will pick up report cards.
Okay,
But
thank you.
yes.
All right, so if you are in favor of this calendar as presented, you will vote yes. If not, you will vote no. Is that 8-2? With a vote of 8-2, the calendar is approved as presented. Zoning and facilities, Mr. Pearman. No, I just was gonna give you a chance to have your name called during the meeting.
Well, you got caught off guard answer.
Okay,
but,
you don't have, I just called it 'cause it was there. We'll go on then to policy reviews. Item 8.4.1, review policy 6206, 6304, 63041. Mr. Moore, your light's on.
Mr. Chairman, could we defer these to the next work session, please?
That's what I was gonna ask as well.
Okay, that sounds like a consensus, among the board. We will move these policies to our next work session.
Can we do the same for the next one, the compensation, because I think it needs discussion. I realize we're presented three different, things, of which there are different ways to look at it. I've kind of studied it and have my thoughts about it, but I think it'd be better for us to have a discussion about it.
Ms. Parker.
I would agree with that. I would also say I think that those policies need to be attached to the agenda for people to be able to review, and when they're not, I don't really think we can vote on them anyway, because they're
Correct.
not available for the public to potentially make comments on as well.
All right, is it the board's consensus that we move this to the work session in November? Okay. Seeing no other instructional low bids, operations low bids, FYI. Tell Doug that we, missed him and hope he's doing well. We have a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Howe. Motion was by Mr. Moore. All those in favor, stand up and leave.